this morning, the biggest idea I want to unpack is that in transition, when God is moving us from one part of our story to the next, there is an identity that he wants to continue to reveal to you of his identity in you. So I wrote this down. God wants to reveal who he is in you as he is bringing you through. Okay, let's think about this in the story of the Israelites out of Egypt, through the wilderness, over Jordan, and around Jericho, and taking the promised land. That thing that God had said, I have given this to you. I have given this to you. And so somewhere between, years of slavery and a generation that would then one day step into and listen to the voice of God and say, this is what God has given us and this is how he's telling us to do it. In between there and there isn't just about the journey. It is also about God revealing himself to and through a people. We have the Holy Spirit with us, so he is revealing himself to and through us, one-on-one, face-to-face, personally. And in that space, we learn this is the image, likeness, character, and manifestation of God in me that he is releasing to those around me. You cannot have true revelation of identity without relationship. Okay? I'm just starting at the really bare bone foundations. And you cannot see an on-time, right fit application of identity without intimacy and abiding. Okay, there's like a ton to unpack here. So let me start here. One, as we're going through and God is moving us into new things, it is continually so that he can show us who he is in us. And then he wants to reveal himself to the world around us. But we can't settle for having an assignment and doing something. Having an assignment and following through in obedience is good. Not having a revelation of who he is in you will cause you to fall short. It'll cause you to always settle for the assignment, the obedience, the performance. And at the end of that day, you will be a servant with a really great checklist, with a really great resume. But you still won't know who you are. And you definitely won't know who he is. And there's places God takes each one of us into that we have to know who he is. And we have to know who he is in us. You show up differently in the battle when you know that you are one who is already face to face with Jesus, that you are one who is with Jesus seated in heavenly places, and you are over the battle, not in it and under it. It's a whole different thing to think that you are under attack, and a whole different thing to know that you are standing in Jesus. Even when it's hard, even when it's hitting, even when you're like, but I'm still subject to these things, even then, your faith lives in a place where you go, I am living with Jesus by faith in the place that he has spoiled every principality, overcome them, and made a show of them openly. So, when we're stepping into new things that feel bigger than us, bigger than where we've been, they feel like they're stretching us, or it's a place where we feel like, God, you've prepared me, what's up? Why am I waiting and waiting and waiting? And in times, the things that we've been prepared for and the things we're waiting for, think about David. He was anointed as the one who was in the field, brought out of the field, and said, you're the one. Slosh on the oil, you're it. Somewhere between that moment and the time he actually stepped into kingship, had not just about the battles. So in that moment, when the oil was poured on David, did David know who his God was? Yes, he did. How did he know? How did he know who his God was? He spent time with him in the field. He had the heart of a shepherd that had been formed in him because of where God had placed him. Right? He had fought what? The lion and the bear. So he knew some things about who God was because of the battles that he had fought. Has anybody learned a little bit more about who God is and his power and his might because of the battles that you and your family have placed? Anybody? I'm looking at Cindy going, absolutely. I'm looking at Nancy going, absolutely. There's a lot of faith battles in this room. There's a lot of the ones that we all would say, God showed up, and unless he showed up, we would have failed. We would not be still breathing. And so we're like, we know. So here's David, like he's fought the battles. He knows his battle. He's been formed in him the heart of a shepherd. And yet, what does he not yet have? The crown is just a position. How has he learned to lead the people from a place of kingship? Does he know and does he see the king within him? Does he? No, he does not. And so here's all the battles that start to unfold. Like, man, you get a word, you get a prophetic word, and it's like, yes, I know you're laughing because we've all been there. Yes, you get this word, and it's like the time where David got, like, I'll call it like the slosh of oil. You know, it's like, yes, 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 God has a future for me. Yes, God has a purpose for me. Yes. And we give our yes to him because, like, we carry a heart of David. We love Jesus, and we give him our yes. But somewhere in between the moment where he says and reveals a purpose or an assignment or anything at all, that place is where he has to reveal himself in us. He's not just saying, David, let me show you what you can do. He's like, I need to take you through places in your life to show you who I am and who I am in you. Because you're not going to be a king or rule in any place of authority over my people unless you have learned my heart, but you also can operate in a place of authority in me. And so there are places that it's like it feels like, oh, we're waiting, or there's this place of expectation and things like that. So here you have the Israelites. You have the Israelites who, for, I don't know, hundreds of years have sat under slavery in Egypt. Okay, so how did they get there? They got there because the story of Joseph, remember? Like, look, the story of Joseph meant that, there was a famine in the land, and lack of providence and lack of provision is often God's guiding, the way God guides. Like, we can see it 100 times fold over. So, famine in the land, people are brought into Egypt. He had sent Joseph ahead of them to make provisions, to administrate all of the supplies so that there would be enough for a nation. But out of that providence, out of that story came the growth of Israel within Egypt. So here's the children of Israel, like they live in a place of favor under one king. I'm rapidly taking you through Exodus. And then suddenly, like a change in government, a change in leadership. Oh, and suddenly, like now, these growing and thriving population of Israelites are a threat. So now, instead of something to be valued, these people are something to be squashed. There? Okay. So now, here's a leadership that's doing that. And I'm saying, God, like, I'm still asking you why why did you allow those Israelites to live in the bondage of slavery for all those years? And what I know is, as I was sitting with him this morning, and he said, you may not always know why I do things, but you always have to trust that I was there. Okay? You always trust his heart. You always trust his heart. Take a trip down memory lane of the goodness of God. Take a trip down memory lane. Lay some stones, in your altars. Lay some stones of memories and things to say, like, I remember when you did. I remember when in the midst of that hard time, when people were coming against me and people aligned against, I remember that even then you held me, you preserved me, you did not allow me to get hurt or die, or you still held my family. When people did things that were unjust, you still held us. You held us through. We saw you come through. We saw your faithfulness. So you may not understand why, but you can always know he was there. And what was also happening beyond what those Israelites could see is there was a man who was a deliverer that was being raised up. For 40 years in the palace, he was being educated. And for another 40 years in the desert. So while they were spending another 40 years under slavery, every single day oppressed, every single day crying out to God. It says their cries raised up and God heard them. So look, it wasn't that God was deaf and then he heard them. It's just he heard them. He heard them. And so he heard them. And so, but for 40 years, while he was hearing them, he was forming a man in the desert, teaching him with sheep. And so he was teaching David with sheep. He taught Moses with sheep. Isn't it amazing? What's he teaching you and I with? A lot of sheep. There is a sheep phase in our life where we're like, we've got the battles. I'm telling you, he's taking you through sheep phase of those things that form you. And that might have been your entire career. So to prepare you for what he had now after. Okay, next. I don't believe in retirement. I'm just going to tell you. I believe in next phase. I believe that you have breath, you have purpose. And so it's saying I have another chapter. And I know that means the physical constraints and the physical things change. The physical graces change. I know that. I get that. And within that context, I'm saying there's still a place. I'm saying there's a purpose. You have breath. There is a chapter. And so there's a greater things that happen than the unseen things. And so praying into things is more powerful than just being able to show up. But those who stayed home in Israel, those who stayed home and took care of things, also got a spoils of the war as much as those who went into it. Never forget that, the kind of the American culture for who's on stage and who's, behind the scenes and who things like that. That is not in the kingdom. Better picture is just knowing that those who were in the battle and those who stayed home and supported them as they went in, both of them got spoils of the battle. So enough of that. Okay, so you have a man who was prepared, and then you have a man who was, at the bush prepared and went in to deliver the people out. But what happened? Back to identity. You have a people whose identity was now formed in slavery. Okay? We can't afford to have an identity that was still formed by the sin nature, by fear, by the things and the fears that would have overcome us, overtaken us. Seems like we were at whatever place you feel like you were vulnerable or victimized or whatever that thing was, whatever it was, God's full identity is not just the freedom and the salvation from that thing that absolutely crippled you and wanted to kill you. We didn't just get freedom from sin. We didn't just get freedom from fear. We didn't just get freedom. But in the end, people with a slavery mindset were like, we just want out of here. And so that's where you see a lot of people, like, one, I just want to get free from the slavery of the sin I was in. But they fail to see the identity of Jesus and what that means in them to say, see that you are so beloved. I want you to say, I am the one who is loved of God, because perfect love casts out all fear. And so they couldn't enter into the place. They were like, hey, here's your slave mindset, and you come into the wilderness, that place of forming and transition so that God can take you in. And in that space, we're still trying to define the new phase of life by the mindset that had been shaped in the past. And so God wants to bring a fresh revelation of who he is to us, no matter where we've been, no matter where we're going, no matter what part of our story he is bringing us into. There is a place where he wants to reveal himself to you through you. So in this phase, an example is, as I've been walking out some things, like I've been like, okay, God, here's where you've had me. But I feel this thing inside of me. And should I stay here in this place where you've had me, or this place where I was placed? And do I settle here? Do I just settle here? And for some people, that question is, do I settle right here in the desert? Do I just camp out here? Do I just make the best of it here? Or God, who are you that you in me that you want me to follow through the Jordan, over the Jordan, into the promised land? And what he was saying was, this is who you are. This is who you've been. But now, like, here's this part of me. I am a master strategist. I am a master planner. I'm into the details, and I'm into the whole master strategy. And now that was for me. I'm just delivering this personal. And so in that space, he's like, this is who I am in you. And you've got to walk by faith into the place where I'm going to release that. And there's a place where he has, again, in my own story, he's like, I have given this to you. But I still get to walk through every single day, every single step, and go, well, then what does this look like? So what I'm saying is, God, I believe you. And what does it look like? And so as I've walked through step by step by step, I'm very aware of the impossibilities that face of where he is calling me into. I'm very aware. And so I'm stepping in, seeing, yes, I know that there's favor that's gone before me. Yes, I know that you give me wisdom every step of the way. And so, God, here, I do my best, and you cover the rest. You cover me with your grace. You fill in the gaps with your grace, because only you can. You can pull the Haman move anytime you want. You can wake somebody up. You can wake a leader up with a dream in the middle of the night. You can help make them remember a moment where I came through. You can pull that. You can expose people who are trying to, bring things to the ground. You can do it. And so I call forth the remembrance times he's done it for me, and the fact that it's in the Bible, and I can come back to those things that are real and relevant. Now, how do I know? How do I know I'm not just kind of like forcing some story to make it real? That's where it's intimacy and abiding. Okay, there's a space of intimacy and abiding where I hear him, and I'm saying, like, where are we right now? What are we doing right now? Because, see, in the place of surrender, there's places where he's like, I need you to surrender the need for this thing, because it's where you're seeking validation. It's where you're going to find identity outside of just being so fully loved. All right? And then there's other places where he says, this is about you walking this out in faith. See, those are two different things, both of which are God, right? But you have to know. You can't just hear. But those that are around me that are hearing God with me, like, I know, like when they're praying and I'm hearing and I'm going, yes, this is resonating. This is confirming. So I'm hearing, and I'm also hearing confirmation. And that's where I'm saying it's so critical. It's so critical to have that space of intimacy and abiding. Okay. Because that's how you know the on-time right fit. This is on time. This is right where I am. And here's where I am, and here's where I believe we are. This is a place of faith where God is calling us to move into places in our story, into places together, into places corporately, where he's like, there are mindsets that have been shaped in the past by slavery, and that generation is gone. There's a mindset that's now been, that is being shaped to say, we're going to walk this out by faith. And where God told Moses, and I'm going to try to land on this, where God told Moses at the edge of the Red Sea, Moses, lift up your staff. The staff was everything God had taught him, formed him in the desert for 40 years. Lift up the very thing that I gave you. What's that put in your hand? There are times when God says, lift up what I put in you. Lift up what I put in your hand to do. All right? That was the Moses moment. And both of these things can be true in our lives. This is not one's greater. Okay? There's moments where God says, lift up what's in your hand, because you're going to lead the people through. But where Joshua was leading people, he brought them to the edge of the Jordan. What did God say? I want you. Joshua wasn't the one with his feet at the edge of the river. It was the priests. It was the Levitical priests. And he said, you're going to have the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant represented the revelation of his abiding presence, the reality of his covenant with these children, the reality of who God, this is a reminder of who God is, and God is with them, and who they are. They are God's children. You're God's children, not orphans. You're his children. Provided, protected, you're his children. So let that revelation of everything he's done for you during this past season be the thing that you carry as you put your foot on the edge of the waters of impassibility and say, God, only you can. And as soon as they kept walking up there, it wasn't just about obedience. Obedience is always, are you a servant who follows through? It was saying, I'm a child. I'm walking with the revelation of who you are and where you had me. And you put your foot on the edge of the Jordan, and the Jordan parts, and they cross over onto dry land. And after that point, see those two different revelations of how to get through. Two different revelations. And after that point, then there was a place of circumcision, of healing, in a place of revelation, of an encounter with Jesus as the commander of the Lord of Army. We'll do that next week. All right. Wow. Love you all. Bye.